Okay. We might have to just proxy off of my machine.
Hey everybody, this is Joanna at DevCoast. We're here with the Microsoft Technical Evangelism team for our second webinar for the Hack Productivity Competition. And we're going to hang out with you today for about half an hour and answer some of your technical questions. But before we dive into open Q&A, I just want to go over a couple brief reminders about the competition. So the deadline is next week, January 31st. At 5 p.m. Eastern time, so that is Tuesday evening. So I just want to give you a quick reminder to please submit your projects a little bit on the early side, maybe a couple hours in advance of the deadline, so we have a chance to review everything and get in touch with you in case anything's missing or not looking up to speed. We're really looking forward to seeing your projects. We've already been vetting some that have been coming in over the last week, and they're looking really awesome. So thanks for your great ideas so far and your participation. And today with me, I have a few members of the technical evangelism team from Microsoft, Beth Pan, Riza Ali, Daniel Canning, and Uma Subramanian. I hope I didn't botch any of those names. So they're here with us today to answer your technical questions. So you can go ahead and type those into the chat window at any time if you would like us to help you out with an issue you're having with your project or anything else having to do with the Office Graph or SharePoint technical tools that we're using in this competition. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to the Microsoft team, and we're here to help, so don't be shy. And just while we're waiting for people to jump in with their questions, Dan, we had a few from last week that I think we're still waiting for answers on. Is it okay if we revisit a couple of those?
Yeah, it is.
Great. So one was about extracting and reading the text content of a document in SharePoint, such as a Word doc or a PDF document. The question was, I know that on Windows there's a thing called iFilter, but is there a way to directly obtain text content from SharePoint? And if the answer is no, then based on the fact that SharePoint provides a search service, will the search index need to extract the text content? Is there a way to utilize this process or its results?
I'll kind of throw this out to the team, but I think that the way you would have to do that is through the search index in SharePoint if you're going to get content back from a Word document that's sitting in SharePoint. I'm not sure if anyone else has a different opinion on that, but if you were going to try to use a service to get content from a document in SharePoint, you'd have to go back against a search service. I don't know if anyone else has any other opinions on that. Anyone? I'm
going to look at some old docs in it. I think that we used to be able to actually get binary content. I mean, we did in SharePoint.
Yeah.
Using the SharePoint APIs.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they brought that to Graph yet.
Okay, so we're doing some real-time lookup on that, and as to whether or not that's something that's pulled forward into the Graph APIs, as to whether or not that's something that's there. I know we continue to make investments on what Graph can do back against SharePoint. As you can imagine, that's something that we get a lot of asks about. So we're doing some real-time lookups here right now across our docs to see if there's something that talks about that.
Okay, so while we're waiting for that, I'm going to just move on to a couple other questions I know we're going to try to address from last week's webinar, which is to access the Groups API, we have to use Azure Ad Authentication, which only authorizes work or school accounts. How can I use all the features of Group using Azure 2.0? How can I create and access groups programmatically using any single account?
Does anyone have any thoughts on that? That's a straight auth question where I think what they're asking about is, can they get access to Groups content from basically like with a non-business, personal account?
I don't. Again, it's something that when we were coding against Groups, you can log in as MSA. At the time, there was no group feature around that. I don't know if that's changed because last time I touched it was close to a year ago.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we're having trouble
Yeah,
here.
that's fine. I'm gonna just I'm just gathering the content here, and then I'll just regurgitate it back here in a second.
Sure.
Dan Kershaw, something to try and find out for sure.
Okay. Yeah, same thing. So we're doing some real-time lookup on that one as well. They're good questions. Uma, did you have any other thoughts on that one?
Not really. I'm actually more on the add-in side, so I'm also looking up. But if I find anything, I'll definitely jump in.
And then I guess just one confirmation really quick is from the question. I don't know if that user's on today is whether or not is that trying to get that data back from a personal account. That's how I understand that is from a personal account pulling back graph data from a personal account and getting graph data back off of a business account essentially.
Yeah, no, that user is not with us on this webinar. That was a question from last week, and I believe that user was in talking about a personal account. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So there was another issue we were going to follow up on, which is how can I get a feed of all activities from a user's groups? This was related to the last question we were talking about. I'm looking for a single query for all groups rather than for individual groups using the endpoint in Graph.
So I can, well, I'm just going to just cover that one here internally for a second as well. So go ahead, Emma, were you going to say something on that one?
I do see a list groups API. So have the capability to list all the groups that the user belongs to. Is that what they're looking for? The groups the users are a member of, like we do have all of the groups.
Yeah. So
We're just doing some real-time looking up here on that one as well.
Okay. So we'll just move along to the next question. And just for everyone who's just tuned in the last couple minutes, we have the tech evangelism team here from Microsoft. And so if you do have any questions you'd like us to address right now, feel free to type those in the right-hand sidebar chat window on the YouTube live broadcast. And while we're waiting for those, we'll just continue answering a few that we talked about last webinar. So one of the other questions we had from last week was, is there anything like Google Forms that you can use to post a survey in groups?
I think to me the answer is if you were to do any kind of, Microsoft does have an Office Forms concept and that's similar to Google Forms that you can use to build out apps. Now, I think by default, that can connect to SharePoint for storage. And if on the SharePoint site you have, if you have essentially a form, or even in SharePoint have a form, within Office 365, that by default can be associated to a group for permissions. So I think the best way to address that would be that either through SharePoint forms or through Microsoft Forms, writing back to basically a SharePoint site, you can use groups as the permissions for that. I think that answers what the user is asking. Any other thoughts? Do you agree with that? Right. SharePoint forms. Yeah. So that would be that's how we'd answer that. Uma, do you have any other different opinions on that?
No, but I did find the answer to the previous question. Sorry to digress. But I am that one here.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, which question are we now talking about?
That's the wrong. I think that's just the. So this is the groups list. So this is the groups.
Okay.
Organization, all the groups that I belong to, instead of just each individual group.
I think it's the same. That's where
So that is the API to look up what all the groups a person belongs to?
Yes.
This is actually, this will list all of the groups in the organization. There is also another list groups API, and I will link to that. That will list all of the groups that the user is a member of.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that would answer that.
Okay, is there a way for you to send me that link so I can post it in the chat window?
Yeah, did you, so I posted the first one, which is all of the groups in the organization. Then now I'm gonna send you.
I see it. Yeah, cool, thanks.
Yeah. Just give me a second, yeah.
So here's that link we were just discussing to the groups API, the list groups API.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
the other one. That's the other one which lists all the groups that you are a member of.
Okay, perfect.
So on the SharePoint question.
Okay, I'm posting this in the chat window as well. So these are, Uma, just to clarify, these are the two APIs with all groups from a single endpoint. Is that right?
Yeah, that last one, that's what you.
Can you just please reiterate what these two APIs are that we just posted in the chat window?
Sure. So the first one will list all of the groups available in your organization. And then the one that I just sent you, that
I think it's a little slow on the bandwidth, maybe on that.
Yeah, we're having a little
sorry, it was slow. Yeah.
resolution issue.
Yeah, it's just slow. Sorry about that. Yep. So the last one that I just sent, that will actually list you're a member of.
So the last one answers the direct question on what are all of the groups that you're a member of. You'll get that in that second link. The one above it are the ones in your organization.
Okay. Excellent. Thanks.
A quick question on the, is the user on the SharePoint happen to be online?
No.
And can we reread that question one more time really quick?
Sure. So the question was, my project needs to read and extract the text content of a document in SharePoint, such as a Word document or a PDF. I know that on Windows, there's a thing called iFilter, but is there a way to directly obtain text content from SharePoint? If the answer to the above is no, then based on the fact that SharePoint provides search service, I believe the search index will need to extract the text content no matter how. Is there a way to utilize this process or its results?
So I think we have a couple of different answers for this based on when the user means SharePoint. And the reason we're saying that is because there might be a slightly different answer if they're doing SharePoint online, Office 365, which I think I'd be assuming they are based on how we've kind of set up the parameters for this event, versus being on SharePoint on-prem. And then there's also one other slight alternative, which would be if they can possibly use OneDrive. I think what we're thinking is that with OneDrive, there's it's a little more robust as far as what we can.
Well, we know that we can get to the file in OneDrive.
Yeah.
We could also get to the file in SharePoint. I believe on-prem, but for sure SPO.
Okay. So yeah. So I think the thing is what we would kind of the guidance we'd get for that is they can get to that document's content for SharePoint online and definitively on OneDrive. So maybe if they think about from a project perspective also possibly using OneDrive for the storage for that. And then we would, I think the answer is a lot more challenging if you're talking about for SharePoint on-prem. So that we would probably not, there's not a good solution for that.
For on-prem and online, though, there is the CSOM. There are separate libraries, SharePoint on-prem, CSOM, and then SharePoint online, CSOM. So they could look in there. I mean, they have tons of APIs for stuff as well. So that's also.
And so then this last piece of guidance would be looking at CSOM libraries for SharePoint to be able to get to that content would be one other kind of just place to do some investigation as well.
Okay, great. Thank you for all that. I think that helps clarify, or I hope it helps clarify for that participant. We just got another question in the chat window, which is just wondering, what are you looking for in Microsoft Office add-ins when judging? So I can just explain what the general judging criteria are, but then I can ask the Microsoft team to chime in with any of their own thoughts. So basically, the three main criteria which are on the hackathon site are the extent to which your add-in improves organizational or individual productivity in the workplace. So productivity, of course. The relevance to the Microsoft platform, so the extent to which your app, add-in rather, makes use of the Office Graph or SharePoint APIs. And then, of course, the quality of the overall idea, how creative and original it is, and what your use case is. So those are the criteria, the main criteria we'll be using to judge your add-in, but if the Microsoft team has other thoughts, I'd welcome those.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are all great. I mean, that's, I think, why we put those out there, is that really frames it up well. So it's, you know, how well is someone coming up with a new kind of creative idea, something that's thinking about productivity and you know, increasing, you know, an end user's an organization or workflows productivity, looking at a new way. And then, of course, how you're using our APIs and specifically, you know, the core to that being Microsoft Graph. The other one I would maybe think about, though this is not, and it's not listed as one of the three criteria for a reason, but if someone's doing an add-in that's within, you know, an Office client, is thinking about how much it seems like a native part of Office. And you know, I know on the site and in documentation we've put out there is making sure people understand that we've open sourced Office Fabric, and you can go out there and look at that, and you can see, you know, iconography and styles, and to really make your add-ins look like they're native part of Office. I think that's something that's nice from kind of a fit and finish perspective. Is does it have a nice seamless user experience and seem like, you know, it's a native part of the Office experience. Now, of course, if someone's building their own iOS app and it's just using Graph on the back end, that's not applicable. That's why it's not at the highest level for a criteria. But if you're doing an add-in within Office, I would think a little bit about fit and finish, and maybe go out there and see what you can take advantage of from the Fabric, you know, components that we've open sourced.
Sure. So UX is also a factor.
Yeah.
From a UX point of view, there's Fabric, and then there's also the UX design template. So they could look at that. It's a bunch of templatized UX that they could take and sort of start. So there's first run experiences, there's navigation, like how to do that and be successful at that in an add-in, because it's like a mobile view, because it's so limited in terms of real estate. So you could sort of lift and just drop it into the project. Yeah,
that's great. That's another great point, is that we also just have you know, design templates up on dev.office as well that you can go to and look at for templated ways beyond Fabric to think about navigation, to think about UX, user experience. So I think those are good things to think about from kind of fit and finish and you know, polish on your project.
Great, that's great advice. We actually have a couple of new questions that have come in over the chat window. One is from Serhi. He says, I know it might be a stupid question. Actually, there are no stupid questions, so it's not. He says, I've tried to find in Docs anything to listen for text changes inside of a Word document and haven't managed to find it. Does Office.js have some kind of this API?
Can you read? That's looking for text changes within a document?
That's what it sounds like. So I'll just read the question one more time. He says, I've tried to find in docs, so I assume he means documentation, anything to listen for text changes inside of a Word document, but I haven't been able to find it. Does Office.js have some kind of API like this?
We're looking and thinking.
Okay, all right.
And I just pasted in the chat window just on the last kind of response just around the UX design patterns. I just dropped a link to the docs for UX design patterns in there as well, just to close off that last topic.
Sure, I'll put that in the YouTube chat window.
So our eventing in the new Office.js model is a little bit limited. We do have the older version 1.0 eventing still supported in the new Office.js model. However, for Excel, we have a little bit more support for events that's already coming up in January. And for Word, I think it's in progress. But so we do have, so if you use the older object model together with the new Office.js model, you'll still be able to get, like, you know, if a selection changed, if a binding changed and things like that. So it's the older model, so you can follow that, and I can copy some links and paste them here in the IM window for that. But if you're looking for the new Office.js model and more, richer eventing support, that's upcoming.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep.
We just had one additional question come through from Yaroslav, who's asking us, I'm trying to store custom data to a PowerPoint file by using the function office.context.document.settings, sorry, I'm reading it aloud, .save async, but it's not working. Should I read that again?
Yes, please.
I'm trying to store custom data to a PowerPoint file by using the function office.context.document.settings.save async, but it's not working.
So I don't know if this actually plays into the question, but we found something rather interesting yesterday, that if you're calling Office.js, you have to include core.js into your project for async functions to work.
He says that in Excel it's working fine. It sounds like it's just not working properly in PowerPoint.
Is that aligned to what you found then? What you're thinking?
Yeah.
So I'm going to slide over my computer just a little bit and have Beth maybe give some input on some stuff that is kind of she's seen on that.
Great, thank you.
We found something yesterday. It was rather interesting that if you're working with promises with Office.js, that you have to include core.js, which is a promise polyfill for some of the libraries for like Office context for that specific function to work in a async way. I don't know if that's actually the reason for this function to like not work right now, but just to double check like if the core.js or the promises is actually working. Or like it'll be a lot more helpful if we can get like the error trace or whatever it's logged in a console.
And I think that sounds like a great candidate for like Stack Overflow, right?
Yeah,
I mean, so I think of like the kind of ones we have right now. Let's definitely encourage the user to post that one in Stack Overflow. We'll keep an eye out for that one today, and I think that's one where we want to make sure we respond where we get a good community. Everyone else can see that one too.
And just if the customer could try that in probably like Word, just that that section of the code, to see if it works in Word and probably not PowerPoint, and that would help clarify.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just for everyone watching, I just posted that Stack Overflow forum link to the chat window. So Yaroslav, if you want to follow up today on Stack Overflow, the Microsoft team can help you dig into that issue a little bit further.
Yeah, and then for tags and that, we're always using
Office-JS.
Office-JS. So just tag it for there, and then this team will keep an eye out for that one.
Okay. He says thank you, and he'll do that. So just to move on to a couple other questions from last week's webinar, I actually got one over email yesterday that I'd like to ask from someone who said that he's not getting notifications from Microsoft Graph Outlook. that he has a subscription ID, but when he creates an email, he does not get notifications on his end. I'm not sure if it's my configurations or a core issue, he says.
I can probably but,
I'm
is
gonna,
there any way I can interact
You wanna
directly
just,
with
you
the
wanna just
person?
come here? And-
yeah, or do you want to,
I mean, because
it could go, yeah, we can do
actually,
that.
I might be able to, actually.
And-
Can you repeat that question again? And I think I might start by directing you to a Stack Overflow question. That may be where we've tracked it.
Oh, okay. Is this something that's already been in the forum?
Yeah, it can be for various reasons.
Okay, so he says, I'm not getting notifications from Microsoft Graph Outlook. I'm getting a subscription ID, but when I create an email, I don't get notifications back on my end. I'm not sure if it's my configurations or a core issue.
Okay, is there a way to interact directly with this person?
I'd be happy to forward the email to you, sure.
Okay, thanks. Just because it could be quite a bit of back and forth.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that same user had an additional question, which I believe is related, and he says, I'm getting the Graph Outlook webhook to subscribe to get mailbox changes. Right, again, I'm getting a subscription ID, but not getting notification from Microsoft. Are there API versioning issues to look out for?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
So just going back to that PowerPoint save async question. So I'm seeing here in the documentation that it is supported for Windows for Office for Windows Desktop, online, and iPad. So so it may be something's not correct in the code. So if the user could post that to Stack Overflow to the code that they're having trouble with. Okay.
We just had another question come through the chat window, which is, are the Excel 365 APIs considered part of the Graph API?
Yeah,
I believe
yeah.
so, right?
yeah,
Yes.
yes.
Okay. One of the other issues we had outstanding from last time was how users can follow up if they don't receive a confirmation email after they sign up for a developer account. Was there any further information about that?
Let me take that one and I'll track that down with that. The one thing is great is if we can have any users has issues getting back emails just on signing up for developer account tenants, is if they can send us the email address that they used for when they signed up, and if they obviously in this case they would not have gone to the tenant, but if someone gets into a tenant, has later problems with issues, if they can send us a tenant ID, then that's what we need to kind of track down with. So I think on that one we have the email address, I believe, and so we can track it on that end.
Okay, great. We can try to follow up with that.
Yep.
So we just had another question come through from Yaroslav, who says, what about protection, an Office add-in from side loading? As I understand it, everyone can use a public URL for a web add-in and create the manifest file manually and load my Office add-in as a side load. I think that's the same question we answered last week, right?
Yeah, so you can they can just side load for locally. That's correct.
Right. Yes, okay. Yaroslav, so yeah, you just need to give us the manifest file and we can side load that and test it. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah.
Okay. So another question we were trying to resolve from last time is, does the file picker SDK require an Office 365 account login? A OneDrive account login does not work for JavaScript version 7.
It's a OneDrive, that's different, I think.
It's a OneDrive.
Yeah, which I personally haven't dealt with.
So it's SDK designed for OneDrive?
I mean, it was back before Graph existed. That was the way in, I mean, so they had their own, yeah.
Okay.
So,
All right.
yeah.
Well, I think
So I'm not sure how they carried that forward, or at the time it may have been mostly MSA and
So do we just want to make sure we just post that one then to make sure we get that one posted to?
story. I mean, Ryan Gregg would be the person you might have some information.
Okay. So we need to do a little bit more homework on that one, and that just has to do with the fact of kind of some legacy stuff of where those pickers were done across OneDrive versus SharePoint. I think Uma just dropped some a link.
Yeah, it says version 7.0 supports OneDrive Personal and OneDrive for Business using the Graph API. So are they saying they don't want to use the? So it supports OneDrive Personal.
Okay. Let me put that link up as well.
Okay, so maybe it only works through the Graph API. Okay, yeah, we do need to follow up, I think.
Okay, so we will get back on that question. Also, this link is a bit too long for the chat window, so we'll share that a bit later. We've just gotten a couple of additional questions coming in the last minute or so. Just a moment, let me find those. So Serhi is asking us, is it okay to use a beta channel of a JS library in production ready extension? Is there an NPM published package with, I'm not sure I understand this, with Semver versioning for Office JS library? Let me just post that to you in the Google Hangout so you can read that, Microsoft team. I'm not sure if I interpreted that correctly.
Is it okay to use beta channel of JS lib in production ready extension? Is there an NPM published package within the server versioning for Office JS library? I'm not sure I understand the question.
Okay, I'll ask him to clarify.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think if they're using a beta channel, I'm not sure what that means. That's the part I don't understand. So I don't think there's any issue with what the user described, though I'm not exactly sure what they mean by beta channel of JS library.
I think maybe they're asking, like, can they use the beta CDN in production ready Office add-ins? And the answer would be no. I mean, the beta APIs are for trying out and giving feedback and like for their own like prototyping, but we don't want them using it in production applications.
Yeah.
But in the case of like if we're doing just like a hack, does it?
I don't think
In the hack is fine, but I thought they said production.
Okay.
As in, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think the difference is if the user's talking about taking something that they're gonna. I think that here's the distinction. If the user's gonna use it out to something to submit for this contest, that's not an issue. If they're going to take it and submit it to the store, then that won't go through. Like, for example, if they were going to publish that through the Office store, it wouldn't make it through using a preview API. I think that's maybe the distinction. I think I understand. I think you're right. I understand the question now. So if they're using a preview API, great for this contest. We welcome that. If they're going to try to submit that to the store, it wouldn't get through the store.
I see. Okay. Serhi, I hope that answered your question. If not, just type another one in the chat window. So we just got another question from RX who asked, similarly for Excel 365 APIs, are they in, he says they are in beta. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay.
For the purpose of this event, that's fine.
Okay, great.
But once again, just if they're building something they're going to eventually publish through one of our distribution channels, they'll need to wait till it gets out of preview to GA.
Okay. Just scanning to see if there were any other outstanding questions from last time. I think we've addressed most of the major ones. So just another note to everyone who's watching right now, if you have questions, we'll hang out for another 10 or 15 minutes. So don't be shy, we're here to help. So please type your question in the right chat window of the YouTube live broadcast. And just a quick shout out about the other channels where you can get help. You can email us at support@devpost.com. You can post your question to the discussion forum of Hack Productivity, the Hackathon website. And that forum window link is right here. And of course, you can again post to the Stack Overflow channel for Microsoft, that link I posted earlier, and get your questions answered directly by Microsoft's technical team. So Peter asks, when creating a calendar event using Graph, the event ID is different for each attendee of an event. Is there a way to get a common ID for all the attendees of a single event?
We're looking at that right now.
Okay.
We may need to respond back on that one, but we're doing some. We'll do some real time lookup, and if not, we may need to respond back on that one. But
Okay.
I understand the question. So it's can you get an ID for all attendees?
Yeah. So Peter, we will get back to you on that just in a brief moment. And then Andrew has a question. He says, I'm going to submit an Excel add-in. Should I just add the zip file and host it on my website and submit the URL for you to download? Sure, that's definitely one way you could do it.
And then just make sure they're including the manifest file, right?
Yeah, as long as you include the manifest, that should work fine. He says thank you.
Great.
So we are just waiting for additional questions to come in, and really appreciate everyone hanging out with us today and for participating in this hackathon. We're really happy to have you be part of it with us. There's just one more question from last week. Oh no, I believe we covered that actually.
So I have some links here out to the events question. So I have copied some links to the event documentation that we have existing. I mentioned again for Excel, we have a little bit more event support coming up in 1.4, which is in this month, and as well as in 1.5, which will be upcoming. And also for Word, we're still working on adding more eventing support.
And where did you send those links? I'm not seeing those yet.
So that's the ones that were sent at 9:29 a.m.
Sorry, via what channel?
Oh, the group chat. Like I just copied and pasted it on the IM window.
Okay.
So let me do that again.
Great, thanks.
Should I have received something about that subscription? I'm not sure if I'm that subscription.
While we're just waiting for additional questions to come in from the participants, are there any sort of common themes that have been popping up in the Stack Overflow forum that you guys are aware of? Common questions we can just run over quickly?
I think I'll just Dan, I'll just jump in really quick, and maybe if you want to give some other opinions on this as well. But I think I think we often get a lot of questions just around auth. Traditionally, I think when first time maybe people are doing add-ins, that's kind of a common theming, and because that's been common, I think you'll find a lot of good content, both in that channel today and also up on our docs, because at least that's my perspective when kind of working with folks kind of doing first-time add-ins. That's normally where there's a lot of questions just around auth or SSO on that side of things. But I think we have a pretty good amount of content out there addressing that. I don't know if you have anything you'd want to add to that.
I do agree. I think for Graph especially, we see a lot of questions around auth. And usually in the Stack Overflow threads, we are linking to good documents that actually help understand how auth works in general. So, and if that's not the case, if you run into an issue and if you're looking for help, please do post on Stack Overflow. We're looking at it on a daily basis. And there are engineers here that will get back to you, within a matter of like a few hours to a couple of days. We'll try to help you as much as we can. And on the add-in side, it's more on the guidance, just general, do we have this API support, or is this supported, kind of a thing. And again, we're trying to answer and be there and help out as much as we can. If you do have feature requests, we also have another resource, which is Office User Voice. So please do use the user voice site and submit feature requests. Like if you want eventing support, and eventing support is already listed there, but if you want features that are not available, APIs that are not available today, please do submit your feature requests on user voice. Again, we are looking at them now more regularly, pretty much on a daily basis. So we'll be happy to help you with your requests.
Yeah, and then I think just one other kind of just promotional plug for those channels is, the developer evangelists and even just across the engineering folks generally around Office extensibility, have put a really good infrastructure in place and are passionate about responding to developer questions up there. So even kind of outside of the framing of this event, as you hopefully just continue your momentum in our ecosystem and extending Office generally, you'll see, I think, really good response rate over there in those channels. So keep coming back to those channels after this event, and I think you'll see a pretty good response from the team up on those channels. And as was mentioned, normally in a matter of hours, they take pride in their responsiveness up there.
Great. I'll just post that Stack Overflow link one more time, just in case people don't have that. And I don't think we have any additional questions, so.
Just one really quick, there was the question that we had that we were going to follow up on, which was specifically around the webhooks. Was that one going to be mailed, or was that?
There are some troubleshooting steps in a README that they could try if I send you one.
Yeah, I just want to do that. And I'm also going to post a link real quick that we did some research on one of the ones earlier on the webhooks one. I'm going to send you right now a link for that too.
Okay. Yes, that webhooks question was something we got over email and in the chat window, so I can just forward the email to you, and hopefully you can follow up with that participant.
Okay.
But I think that we're about at time here, and I don't see any additional questions. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in today and hanging out with us. We're very happy that you're taking part in this hackathon. We think there's some excellent prizes up for grabs, including, of course, $40,000 in cash, tickets and travel to the Build conference, and lots of ways for Microsoft to highlight your app in the store and on their other marketing channels. So there's a lot of stuff to be excited about, and we're looking forward to seeing all your amazing projects as they come in over the weekend and early next week. In the meantime, feel free to reach out to us at support@devpost.com, on Stack Overflow, or on the discussion forum of the hackathon site. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.